Thank you, Steve, for the invitation to speak here at this beautiful Big Book Compendium. And it's lovely to see all the familiar faces and those I haven't seen before. My name is Cathy, and I'm an alcoholic, and a little nervous, but that doesn't matter. Here I am. So step 3, in the short form as we know it, and I will be going through the book to talk about this step. Although a lot of theory, I will give my experiences with it. But on page 59, it gives us the short form of the step, which is to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to care of God as we understood him. And, you know, whenever I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, the rooms, I didn't understand what that meant. I really didn't. I took the literate off the wall and say, okay, I can do that. No problem. I'll just make a decision. And I heard a lot of people talk about how you can just turn it over, turn it over, turn it over. So I quite frankly ran with that for a while until, you know, clearly I found out what the step meant. And, you know, just to break it down a little bit in the short form, that this decision that we're going to make, the way it was explained to me was, you know, for example, a surgeon makes an incision. So a surgeon usually cuts into something. But when I'm going to make this decision, which means that I am going to cut away from everything else that I have tried up to this point to decide to follow the clear-cut directions in this book, i.e. the next page, and to do the next action. Clearly, that's what I was told, to make the decision to take this course of action that's outlined in this book, to be able to then, as a result of doing that, through that process, my will, which is my thoughts, my life, which is my actions, will be turned over to the care of God as I understand them. And in step 2, excuse me, you know, step 2 was kind of lovely for me somewhat. I really did explore what the book talks about, you know, which asked me to ask myself what these spiritual terms mean to me. After I had answered that question on page 47, do I believe, or am I now willing to believe that there's a power greater than myself? And like, I'm going to be honest with you, when I answered that question the last time around in the steps, it was different from the first time I went through the steps. I got really, really, really honest with myself, and I was willing. And I explored those little terms, those little pronouns, I guess you call it. Bill gives us so many right through the book, which was, you know, spirit of the universe, creative intelligence, whatever one, you know, was comfy for me. And I really explored it. And that gave me the answer, which was perhaps that I'm willing. I'm willing. You know, what you guys tell me in the rooms, I'm going to test the facts to what you're telling me. But that was enough. That was a starting point for me, because in step 1, when I got here licked and dry and my life was unmanageable and I was contemplating the ultimate sacrifice, which was to take my own life, I was literally, that's where I was, because alcohol had stopped working. You know, I have a big problem in step 1 when 33% of our book talks about it, that there's, you know, I have this medical diagnosis, there's something wrong with my body. I put alcohol into my system. I can't stop. To me, it just looks like having another drink. It's very normal. I stop drinking. I come out of the spree. I don't know when I'm going to come out of it. I stop drinking and I get restless, irritable, and discontented. Those manifestations of that spiritual malady we talk about on page 52. The thought comes that perhaps it's a good idea to have a drink. It's a lie, or perhaps I don't think at all. And I usually, Cathy's story is, she usually ends up going, how did I end up with the glass in my hand? And that cycle continues on and on and on and on. And it did for me until it stopped working. And I had a moment of, you know, Howard and I talk about this a lot, but a moment of truth. I'm going to die. And that's the truth. And I come back to you guys licked and dry, but very, very sick. Did not know I was very, very sick. So, you know, I get to I get to step 3 after going through the previous pages with a sponsor who's recovered and armed with the facts about themselves, and I'm getting ready to make this decision to turn my will and my life over to care of God as I understand him. I don't really understand him. I have a concept which is good enough for my mind. The mind needs a concept, the mind needs an idea, the God idea. It worked for you. Let me test the facts out. I'm not going to, I still have agnosticism. I'm going to take your word for it and your demonstration, but I got to do my homework because I want my own experience. And, it talks about, we get to these 3 pertinent ideas on page 60, and it talks about being convinced that we're at step 3, which is that I decide to turn my will and my life over to care of God as I understand him. You will hear me using I talk about myself. I won't talk about you, and I personalize the book. But no, I mean you as well if you're following along. But when I got here, I looked at this, and it says, just what do we mean by that, and what do we do? Well, I didn't know that I was at step 3 until the book made it clear to me. I know they might sound like you should have known, Cathy, but I really didn't. But what was pointed out to me was, Cathy, these 3 pertinent ideas that I'm alcoholic, I can't manage my life. No power, no choice, no control. Lack of power is my dilemma, period. That is, the problem I'm up against with alcohol and with my life. I don't have any power on my own. And no human power can help me here. I tried everything, right? But maybe something could and will or would if I seek it. I often hear this word like God's not lost. No, he's not. I just took a little dance over here. He's always here, 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 here. And it's been my experience that he's just like, when I'm doing my dance, he's like, come over, come over. I haven't moved, you have. But back to the text. So I was convinced when it was pointed out to me at the bottom of page 20, that detailed discussion began, giving me evidence that is this you, is this you, is this you, Cathy? These pages are a set of mirrors written by an alcoholic and alcoholics for alcoholics. Diagnose yourself. Is this clear to you? And I was moved by the evidence in the previous pages right up to here. So what do they mean by that, and what do they do? So there is a requirement, and I missed this for a long time, because of the conditioning and the things that I had heard in the rooms, not out of the book. And the requirement is that I'm moved by this evidence that my life run on self-will is hardly a success. It's very, very difficult. It's very, very painful. That's all I knew at that stage. And, okay, I'm convinced of that, because look where it is and look where I am. Didn't work out very well. And, I love this illustration of the actor, because when I read this, I really, when people say, oh, this was wrote for me, I really did think it was wrote for me. This is the part in the book that I could really, really identify with way before I picked up a drink. When I was drinking, when I would come to periods of not drinking, this was my life. This explained me. And, it talks about that on that basis, I'm almost always in collision with you or something. So I'm crashing into things, into people. I think of a pileup on the highway. It's a collision. And that is hard work when I'm running my life in self-will. It's painful and it's hard work, even though my motives are good. So, that's the thing. Like, I think it's okay at times when I'm not getting hurt or I'm not bumping up against you, that, my motives are good. I can still do this. But anytime I have a motive, it's for me and for my outcome. And there's only a couple of places it talks about motives in this book, I believe, here in our sex conduct and when we go to places where there's alcohol, right? So I know today, through learning, through living, through growing, that spiritual principles will trump my motives in everything. You know, I hear things like do the next right thing. I understand that. I really, really get it. And I'm not coming across as contentious or trying to arouse anything, but like, I don't know what the right motive, what the next right thing is to do, because when I haven't done the work, I'm operating from motives. So it may look good, but it may not be God guided clearly. And I try, it does say most people, again, I personalize it. I try to live by this self-propulsion, and this self-propulsion, I think of a boat that is propelled, it's propelled in the water, it's forced forward. And that's me. You know, for me, it looks like throwing myself into things, fixing, managing, controlling. You know, an everyday situation is if my sister is upset about something, I think it's a good idea to buy her something to make her feel better. I'll throw money at it. Like this self-propulsion, compulsion, I'm getting in the way. And this actor then that wants to run the whole show, and we know an actor doesn't run the show. I'm not an actor. I don't know much about that, but I clearly know there's a director. And when I read this, you know, I read this in my own first person, as you could say. And I love these pages. I just mentioned that I thought this was wrote for me. And like, really, the way I sum it up as is, this is my toolbox of self-will, that if the arrangements would only stay put, if you do as I wish, the show would be great. I'd be pleased, and so would you. And what usually happens is when I try to do that, first, it's very painful. I step on your toes, and usually it's not what I wanted anyway, and it's not good enough. Like, it's never enough. And again, this tool of self-will, which is the manifestations of self here, it talks about that I'll be virtuous, kind, considerate, patient, generous, modest, and self-sacrificing. But on the other hand, I'm mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. So you never know who you're going to get with Cathy, depending on how she operates in these behaviors, these ways to get what she wants so that she's okay. But as with most humans, he is more likely to vary traits. Yeah, but with me, it's more exaggerated. Again, what usually happens, I referenced that a minute ago, the show doesn't come off very well. Either I'm not pleased with it or it doesn't work out the way I want it. So I think life doesn't treat me right. I start to exert myself even more self-propulsion, more self-will. And again, you don't know who you're going to get with me, page 61 I'm on. I'm either more demanding to you or more gracious, but it doesn't suit. The play doesn't suit again. But I'll admit that you're at fault a wee bit. Sorry, I beg your pardon, that I'm at fault just a little bit. But if you would have did this, then this wouldn't have happened. And I love this. He becomes angry, indignant, and self-pitying. When I don't get my way, I'm a victim, I'm in self-pity, and the world has wronged me, and you have harmed me. All self. And we look at the amount of selves in these 2 pages, and there's self, and there's also himself. There's other forms of the word self. The point is, I'm seeing it, I'm seeing me. But what is my basic trouble? I love this. Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Again, I'm operating from motives because I'm self-seeking. You know, we hear that word people-pleasing. It's self-seeking. I want your approval. I want to be liked. I don't want to hurt your feelings. How do you think of me? What do you think of me? I need to get what I want from you. So I come across as very kind, but I'm really self-seeking, operating from motives. Is he not the victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Well, this was a big one for me, and this really was very apparent. I'll jump forward to the next step for 1 minute in step 4. especially when I did the long talk in 5, that I was a real victim. I felt like a victim in my life, but seeing that on paper was really brought to my attention that I live in this delusion. A victim has no choice. And I was living in that delusion that I could actually violently twist, which means to wrestle, like those big wrestlers, to not be at rest or EST, to satisfaction, happiness out of this life if who manages well, if I manage well. So the world, the people in it, I am having them like a puppet on a string. If I could just get satisfaction and happiness out of this world, if I manage well, and I'm deluded in thinking that. And is it not evident to you that these are things I want? And you know, I called myself out on this. That's why I love reading this where I am today and with women I work with, is like, this is a great reminder. Like, I will talk to my husband and I will be like, but don't you know to do that? Like, don't you know what I'm thinking? Don't you know these are the things I want? But I didn't even give you a script. That wouldn't be my job anyway, but you get what I mean. And doesn't his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can out of the show? Is he not even his best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony? You guys know my husband, I'm not going to put his name on the tape, but this is his favorite line. And I can be this person. Again, even though my motives are good, I'm trying to help you figure something out. You haven't asked for my input or my opinion, but I think it's a good idea to project in and tell you what the correct course of action here is. Producing confusion rather than harmony, running on self-will. Or after a self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays, he's like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister sighs over the sins of the 20th centuries, politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia. Utopia is a state of perfection, which is right here, right now, is what I've learned. If the rest of the world would only behave, the outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who's lost all and is locked up, whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity? And I wonder why they put Florida there. Like, maybe I'm just feeling that because I'm living here now, but why Florida? Like, leave Florida out of it. But you get the picture, and this is what this is doing for us, this picture of, is this me? Is this me? Is this me? This is how it's coming out in my life. And, you know, when I got here, I had to ask, my sponsor asked me this question. She says, come on now, Cathy. She said, aren't we not concerned with ourselves, our resentments, or our self-pity? When I'm untreated, when I haven't did this work, I wake up in the morning thinking about who? Number one, what time is it? I don't want to get out of bed. Can I get coffee? Where do I have to be? What do I have to do today? Me, 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 my resentments, who I don't want to see today, who I'm thinking of from the past, and my self-pity, i.e. let's hit snooze. I don't want to get up. I'm tired. Just arbitrary examples. But come on, am I not concerned with that? Absolutely 100%. So it tells us now what the root of our troubles is on 62. And I love that word, the root, because I don't see the root of a big old oak tree. There's many of them in Ireland. Florida, not so many, but we still have trees. But I can't see the root. It is so deep, and it's the root of all my troubles. Selfishness, all for me. Self-centeredness, all about me. And it's my perception, is how I see the self-centeredness, my perception, how I see myself, the world, and everyone around me. And I got to be honest with you, like, it was a novelty to read this at the first time I read this. But when I read it again and I do the work again, it doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. It's not very comforting, or it's not a novelty. It's the truth. That is the root of our troubles. And I'm driven by the 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. Step on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate. So Again, do the next right thing when I come in here. If I haven't did the work, I can't do the next right thing. I don't have power. I don't have choice, and I don't have control, because I'm being driven by these manifestations of this selfishness and self-centeredness. I wonder how I can't behavior change when I hear these slogans in meetings. Why? Because I don't have a choice. I'm being absolutely driven. Manifestations of selfishness here. And these are big, they really are. Especially the fear. And of course, the delusion and the self-seeking, all of them. But then I step on your toes and you retaliate. And then I wonder later on in my life why I made decisions I find myself in where I feel like I'm hurt. Okay, let's walk the dog back here. Let's walk the dog back here. It may be, it is April 4th, and I might be thinking about something, April 5th, I beg your pardon. It may be something I'm going through now that I made a decision about 6 months ago, and I'm feeling, oh God, I don't like this circumstance or whatever I'm going through. Look at how this is happening now. Look at what's going on. Like, I feel hurt. Let's walk the dog back. Let's walk the dog back. Where did you make decisions based on self, Cathy? So my troubles, our troubles we think are basically of our own making. They are. But that's the ticket. That is the goal. That's the ticket out of the cage. That if my troubles are my own making, I'm pretty sure there's more than 62 pages in this book, as we know, then I can do something about that. My happiness is not in anyone else's pocket or my freedom. They come from me, my troubles. You see, I always thought yous were coming at me until I did inventory. But they arise of ourselves, and alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. And I have a lovely little note here. This self-will run riot is a burning desire to affect control over those around us or over a situation. And that's exactly what I do. I'm trying to, in effect, make an effect by my control over those around me. And now I usually don't think so. Well, all I can say about that is that's why I have a sponsor when I was doing this work. That's why I have a sponsor today, is I can't see it. Now I can, it's better, clearly. But I couldn't see it because I put it down to my delusion. I can't see that I'm an extreme example of self-will run riot. And I love this above everything, above everything in my life. It says we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. Bill talks about that in his story. Simple but not easy. Destruction of self-centeredness. And these are so simple, and we'll get on to that word simple in a minute at the bottom of the page. But it doesn't mean it's easy. Like, these are not my words, but I apply them today. But feeling doesn't have anything to do with it. Like, what is feeling like I want to do this have anything to do with it? It just doesn't. And it says we must, or it kills us. Above everything, we must be rid of it. And, it's not a selfish program. There's things I heard in the rooms. Again, I'm not trying to cause controversy. If anyone's new, I'm just trying to maybe, disturb some people. No, I'm not really. I don't like that. But I'm trying to take any myths we hear out here. It's not a selfish program. We must be rid of this selfishness or it kills us. And I'll tell you how that looks like for me. I didn't understand that because I thought, well, alcohol will kill me, but you're talking about selfishness. I didn't come here to Alcoholics Anonymous to get rid of selfishness nor get a relationship with God. I came here just not to die and not to drink. And how it looks is, like I read that how I'm concerned with myself, my resentments, my self-pity. Like I wake up in the morning, I think of what I have to do. I go about my day. Perhaps I go to Starbucks. Someone doesn't hold the door for me. I'm thinking how inconsiderate they are. Someone, takes long in the line. I'm thinking, if they ever hurry up, I'm going to be late. Someone pulls in front of me in the highway, doesn't indicate or signal, as you guys call it here. And I think, don't they know? That's what we're talking about. The bondage is on me. That's what would kill me. Inevitably, I am restless, irritable, and discontented. And I think a drink will give me the sense of ease and comfort, and I pick up a drink. And there I am back in the cycle. So my selfishness will kill me. Just watch your thinking throughout the day. If you're doing a 10-step, that's what we have 10-step for. But we will see it. But God makes that possible, not me. And I love this next few lines, that even though I have this moral and philosophical convictions galore, I can't live up to them. I want to be a better person. Perhaps I want to try this spiritual basis. I hear other people talking about going to a church, going to a religion, trying to pray more. I want to do all those things. I can do all those things. The fact of the matter is, after 2 weeks, I default back to self and the lack of power. So I can't live up to them. I can't be a better person. It's not a moral issue. I can't get rid of my own selfishness by wishing or trying my own power. I thought by studying the book and looking up every single word and sitting in my home with this book would actually get rid of my selfishness. As we know, the spiritual life is not a theory. It's just not. I have to have God's help. And I love correlating these two sentences. God makes that possible, and we have to have God's help. Now, these are not my words, but they're brought to my attention, which was, if we believe everything in this book, then why am I questioning that God won't make that possible? And I do believe everything in this book, but I need his help, and God can make that possible, to be rid of selfishness. So it goes on to talk to us, and the next thing we see is, so how do we do that, and why do we do that? Well, the first thing is I got to quit playing God. How do I play God? I play God because I think I know what my life should look like. I think I'm in charge. I know. And not even that. Maybe I can see what I'm doing. Maybe I can't, because I still live in delusion. But I'm playing God. I'm running the universe around when I'm just finite. And then I'm doing it for the next person beside me. I'm judging. I'm playing God in my own life and your life. And you better watch out if I don't do this work, quite frankly. And why? Because it doesn't work. Like, the book just gives us 2 pages about it. It doesn't work. And if we look at our own experience, it's really, really painful, the bondage itself. So it gives us a time frame, says next. So the first of all is we have to quit playing God. It doesn't work. The next thing is we decide that hereafter in this drama of life. I always frown when I read that, here and after in this drama of life. It's like, yeah, sometimes I think life is pretty dramatic and here I am, but it is, it feels like that some days. But the beautiful thing about it is that God's going to be my director. He is a principal. I am his agent. He is the father, and I am his children. I just want to talk a little bit about that. I have to quit playing God. It doesn't work. Now, the concept, the idea that I've had of the power up to this point is this belief. By looking at these spiritual terms in our book, I really did just use those. I didn't try to, Harrod's going to laugh, find the perfect light bulb. I wasn't doing that, right? I just used the book. And I have some kind of a kind of a concept for my brain. And I see you guys recovered, and I'm going to do my homework too, because I'm going to hold you to those facts. And that now he is going to be a director. So here's another pronoun for God. He is a director. And again, like, that must mean that I'm the actor. I'm going to get a script. So I'm going on those little conceptions. And here's another one, which is he's a director. A director runs the show, gives me the script. I have a part. I have a role. He is a principal. We are his agents. And the way it's described to me as a principal, you know, and an agent is like, if a footballer, they have an agent who goes out and gets work for them. And that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to do God's work for him. And this one, he is a father, and he is a father, and we are his children. And, you know, I really emphasize that word father because, you know, I think of a father, I think of the idea of what a father does for a child. Now, I didn't have that always growing up, right? But I use this idea of what a father would do for a child, which is everything. A father would keep the child safe. A father would give the child what it needs. Probably take the last breath if that was such a thing for the child. Like, that's what this power can do for me if I take this secondary position. And I love this. Most good ideas are simple. And this concept was the keystone of the new and triumph through which we pass to freedom. And Bill, as we know, has a lot of like masonry terms throughout the book. And we talk about this keystone and this spiritual structure that we're building. And, you know, the foundation is that cement which binds us, which is the common peril, which is the allergy, which is the problem. And the common solution, which is the 12 steps, the big book, that gives me the cement, that gives me the foundation. And this cornerstone is this step 2, we call it step 2. Well, I do, I don't speak for everyone else. On page 47, which is, do I believe, or am I even willing to believe that there's a power greater than myself? That is the cornerstone in which this spiritual structure can be built. And this keystone is the decision at the top, right, of the arch that's going to keep the rest of the steps, right? So I can work the rest of the steps, basically. It's the decision. And that's what they're talking about, this new and triumph arch through which I walk through to freedom. And I love these little paragraph at the top of 63. And then as we know them as a third step promises, it says, when we sincerely, they're getting so close to home, like very earnestly, truthfully, took such a position, which is, God's a director, I'm going to be the actor, secondary position. He's a principal, I'm going to be the agent, secondary position. He is a father, and I am his child. You know, I love when I hear people, our great messengers we hear on Zoom, talk about how I'm no longer CEO of my life. I'm not in management business anymore. Like, Cathy, you are fired. If you didn't already know it, you are fired. So I'm taking a secondary position. Remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Again, I'm being fired from the INC or whatever, my own company I think I'm running. Capital E, employer, not in management. I'm the employee. I go into work every day. I have responsibilities and I have a role in that job. And this power pays me in whatever way it pays me. You know, like, we go to work, we got to do our jobs, right? There's a criteria of what the job is in a job description, and that's our responsibility to do it. And being all powerful, he provided what we needed, if, small word, but a condition, if we kept close to him and performed his work well, not my work, his work well. Established in such a footing that he is a director, I am the actor, he is a principal, I am the agent, he is a father, I am the child, he is the employer, I am the employee. On that footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more we became interested in what we could contribute to life. And as we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. I love it. But I really want to draw your attention to something. So on page 63, it talks about these, I said, the third step promises being established on this footing, even in the little paragraph or the little 4 lines before that. Like, that's a shift from 62, which is selfishness and self-centeredness. That is the root of our troubles. If we quit playing God because it doesn't work, sincerely take this position, there's a change already. There's a shift. Look at these promises. A fellow talked about the little plans and designs, and she caught me in that moment when I heard her speaking, because yeah, like she said, I thought my plans were great, but they're just finite, really. But the point is, they're mine. I become less and less interested in myself, my little plans and designs. And, you know, I felt these promises later on. I had a feeling of some of them when I was here. But later on in the steps, I really, they came into fruition in my life. But I become interested in what I can bring to life, not take from life. Again, shift from selfishness and self-centeredness when I take this position. And this new power flow in, it's new. And to face life successfully, we became conscious of his presence, aware of his presence. And what a load off my shoulders that I just have to be the little puppet on the string now. Like, I got a breath here. And then I needed to do a little bit more action, which I'm not speaking on that step, quite frankly, a lot more. But I got a breath here, and I got really rattled and woken up. And I always say this, particularly about step 1, is I did not like where I was when I seen that. But that was the greatest gift, because it propelled me into doing the next direction, the next action, and what the book told me, because I just wasn't okay there. We needed to go forward. But we were reborn. I know Howard talks about, you know, we get to live 2 lives in one. We get to recreate our lives. It talks about in the doctor's opinion, like reborn. And we began to lose the fear of today or the here, tomorrow, the hereafter. It takes time, but I look at that line and I look about, like, when I experienced that being reborn, I didn't have any, what's the word? Concept of time. It was like I was literally floating, like I was reborn like a child. And that happened for me, going to be honest, in my 5th step. Like, I didn't have that concept of fear, of time, of these other things that were whirling around my head. But I'm almost out of time, and I just think it's, you know, divinely perfect timing to be here where we are in 63, if you've been following along. If not, that's no problem. It talks about we are now at step 3. And we're now at it. I've looked at a lot of stuff before it, but this is the contract. This prayer is the contract which I am signing up with this power that I understand, or perhaps I've a little understanding of up to this point, to go in and make the contract with him. And it says, many of us setters, our maker, as we understood him, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. So I'm giving myself to the power to build with me and do with me as he wishes. Okay. Relieve me of the bondage of self, the slavery of self, my thoughts, my actions, all of that slavery. Why? Because I can better do thy will, not so I will have less pain in my life, to get a better job. No, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties of victory over them, may bear witness to those that help thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Take away these difficulties so I can show others, bear witness of your power, your love, and your way of life. And I don't need to know what the difficulties are. He's going to, take them and transform them. More importantly, that I can show you, be a demonstration of this power. And I love the other night we were at a meeting and I really captured the word always for the first time here. Always, always. As the person in the meeting said, is continuous. It's not like, all right, I'll do it till 12 o'clock today and then back on the horse of Cathy. Self-web, no. Am I perfect? No. And that's why I have step 11 and 10. So we thought, well, before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly. And when I got here, I did write my own third step prayer out. It talks about how the wording is optional, as long as I express this idea without voicing it, without reservation. I chose to use this prayer in the book because it was very clear and a lot easier for me. And I just wanted to say, for anyone that is new, like even in that third step prayer, we see words like thy, and that's all the reference to, and thee, to the power. Like, so this is a great opportunity for us if we wish to write out our own. As I said, I did the one in the book, but I love when it says we thought, well, before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to him. I love that word abandon. It's not surrender. I'm just giving myself to the power. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was kind of scared. But I did take time before entering this contract. I didn't just say, okay, I'll do it right here, right now. I really read these pages and asked myself, is this me? Am I ready to make this decision, first and foremost, to cut away everything I've tried up to this point, to decide to go forward, to have this start of this relationship with the power, to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And I think sometimes it's missed. The prayer on page 59 was to ask his protection and care with complete abandon. And I did that, scared, but I was ready because I knew this was me. And I followed that up immediately, that third step prayer, the icing on the cake, the contract. I entered into it with my first demonstration of what needed to be done next, which was this launching out on the bigger course of action. And you will have a brilliant speaker here, I'm sure, next week talking about that. So thanks for letting me come and share. And that's all I have.